I'm delighted today to be speaking to Isabelle Edward at the Old Government House Hotel in Guernsey about her relocation story to this beautiful island. Welcome, Isabelle.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk a little bit about your move to Guernsey and all the other aspects as well that are contained within that relocation story. But first of all, I mean, how long have you lived here on the island?
So we actually came in January 2021. So relatively recently, 2.5 years.
So cast your mind back. What was your first interactions with Guernsey? Did you come here on a break? What was it that made you aware of the island in the first place?
So I need to go back a little bit. I've been coming on business in Guernsey for 20 years. So I knew the island. I was coming 3 times a year. Corporate trips, in the morning, meetings, lunch, back to the airport, go back home. Never really had a proper tour, but always felt there was something interesting on the island. It was always really welcoming, lovely people, just always loved it. And then when COVID hit in the UK, we had to be in severe lockdown in the UK for several months. And by September, we got cabin fever, which is the kids moved back with us and boyfriends, and it was a busy household. And we thought we just need a little break. So where can we go? And Guernsey was one of the only places on earth that had a normal lifestyle back then. So we thought, okay, well, we go for 3 weeks. We just rent somewhere and just go and decompress for 3 weeks. And we did that. We rented a little barn in the Vale, did a week of isolation. And then we thought, well, let's have a look around. My husband always wanted a farm. We'd been looking for a small farm in the UK for many years, never found something adequate. It was always too far from civilization or too far to travel. So we thought, let's just have a look. We're here, we've got 2 weeks. It's a small island, let's look. And we saw many properties, but the very last one, we just fell in love. That's it. So it was like within seconds, we thought, this is amazing. We could retire here. At that time, it was a long horizon. It was years down the line, but we thought we could buy this, renovate it, take our time, come and spend time every year on and off. And then when we retire, we come here. So we made an offer. It was accepted. So we bought the house. We'd only seen it twice.
Where is the property? Could you describe it on where it is on the island?
It's a 12th century holding on the west coast. So 6 acres of land. It's a typical Guernsey farmhouse. It goes back 800 years. We probably are the 32nd generation living in that house. It's typical, low ceilings, walls that are a meter thick. It used to be a pig farm, then an apple farm, then they did strawberries and tomatoes. So it's beautiful. It's on the slope overlooking the sea. It's absolutely beautiful.
Have you had to renovate a lot of the property?
Huge amount of work.
And has that been, how's that been in terms of getting local contractors? It's like any development, it comes with ups and downs, doesn't it? It
does. But just going back in time, when we bought the house, the gentleman who owned it doesn't live on the island anymore. So he said, look, if you want, I can leave everything. Literally everything. I take my clothes away and I leave everything. So we came back in January to see what we'd bought. After we completed, after Christmas, we thought, let's go back for a couple of weeks to see what we've got. Open the drawers. We never opened any cupboards or anything. So we didn't know what we had. So we came back for 2 weeks, did a week of isolation again. And as soon as we came out of isolation, the island went into lockdown again. Second lockdown. And then that was for several months. And then they said, you can't really leave until you're vaccinated. You should really wait. So it took 7 months to be vaccinated, and we literally never left. So we came for 2 weeks with a suitcase of clothes for 2 weeks, and we never left.
So your business connections gave you the insight on Guernsey, but then the pandemic really just changed the story for you and has given you a new direction.
Exactly. I mean, in the UK, we run a global company, so we never have meetings where we're all in the same room anyway. Most of our life is online. So it doesn't matter where you are.
Remote working was a natural reflex,
it became acceptable to not be in the office. So we just learned that with COVID, and it's never been a problem.
And what's the sector of your business?
So we do marketing for the IT industry in 44 languages. So we follow the sun Monday to Friday. We've got call centers around the world in New Zealand, Philippines, South Africa, Spain, UK, and the US.
It's super global. You've got a global customer base.
Exactly.
And how have you found the business community here in Guernsey? I mean, obviously you may have customers here, but obviously most of it's a global business. But how have you found the reception for just meeting other people in business, sharing ideas, feeling welcomed?
So that's not really a side we interact with, because all our clients are American corporates, huge American companies. So we don't really have any business dealings with the island. However, we do mix with a lot of people. And we found the island incredibly welcoming and actually stimulating in other ways, because you meet interesting people, you may share ideas or maybe challenges at times, and that's been really, really nice. I mean, for a small island like Guernsey, there is just the most incredible richness of characters here. I think just through the nature of who comes and lives in Guernsey, you meet literally from the NASA scientist to, multimillionaires who've made their business and retired, or sold their business and retired in Guernsey, to my neighbours who are born and bred and, learn patois in English with their second language. It's like such a scale of characters. It's just incredible and really, really nice about the island.
And have you found there was a lot of professional support to help you move and your business set up? I mean, professional services firms here are used to dealing with companies that are trading internationally. Have you found that all the support was here?
Look at Guernsey, it's been amazing. I mean, really, like lots of little things. There's a lot of quirks about living on the island. And Jo and her team up, which has been invaluable, just helping you from setting up with the GP to understanding issues with the licensing that you may require. It's been really, really helpful.
And what about on the lifestyle side? I mean, how have you found going from someone who knew the island from a business perspective into living here?
Yeah, I think there is so much more than you realise. I mean, Guernsey is just absolutely incredible. Not just because of the natural environment, because of the sea, because of, you're close to everything. Yes, it's a very small island, but you're 6 minutes from the airport, you're 10 minutes from town, and there are so many clubs. It's whatever you want to do. If you don't want to get involved, that's fine, and people leave you alone. But if you want to invest time and interact with the community, they're so welcoming. It's just incredible. So we've done that. We've joined quite a number of clubs. We've got involved with the farm. We've got animals that we've entered in the various shows on the island, and just had an incredible reception.
Do you think also the process of relocating forces you to actually go out and make, to try and interact? I mean, I myself have moved to a new area, and you actually...
I think in
pushes
England
you out your comfort zone.
It might be more difficult in the UK. I mean, we lived in 16 years on the same road, and we knew the neighbour on the left, the neighbour on the right, and nobody else, really. And here, I have a close neighbourhood, and I know everyone. If I go on a walk with my dog, I need to allow extra time because you chat with everyone. It's just maybe a sense of community that we've lost in town, but that is really present here outside of St. Peter Port. I don't know life in town, but in the countryside, it's just such a strong sense of community. Guernsey's tagline is "Stronger Together," and it couldn't be more true. It's a small island. There's only 63,000 of us, and unless you stick for each other, where we're going to go. So it's very, very strong and very true where we live in Saint-Pierre-du-Bois. Yeah.
And you were also telling me earlier on about a new charity project around the Victor Hugo Museum. I mean, I think that's a really fascinating example of a community coming together to do something special. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so my superpower is that I'm French. So I'm the only French person in the group. But basically, Victor Hugo came here for 15 years. So he was in exile. He was a politician at the time, obviously having written a lot of poetry and novels such as Notre Dame de Paris. But he came in exile with a fallout with Napoleon. We brought apart with Napoleon II, and he was here for 15 years. So he came having lost his social circles, having lost a lot of his furniture, a lot of his relatives, and he built a new life in Guernsey. So he bought a house called Hauteville House, which he renovated and made an absolute work of art. And then he completely fell in love with the island and experienced a renaissance in his writing. So after his daughter died, he pretty much put his pen down and stopped writing for 10 years. Coming in Guernsey, he found inspiration again. So he published his biggest book of poetry called Le Contemplation. He published Les Misérables from Guernsey. He wrote half of the novel here in Guernsey. And then he went on to write some major works like Toilers of the Sea, which he dedicated to the island, and The Man Who Laughs, 93, a whole body of work, which is probably his biggest body of work, was actually written in Guernsey. And we forget about that. And there's very little here to celebrate. There's a couple of statues around town. You can see his house, but it's only open 6 months of the year. By nature, the house can't change because that's what he left. And also there's no space to exhibit anything. So there is a genuine story to tell because Victor Hugo was so much more than a writer. He was a very engaged person in human rights. He was against the death penalty. He was really strongly advocating universal education for girls and kids up to a certain age. He was very, very much in favor of freedom for women and equal rights. So he was really ahead of his time, and his values have transcended the years. They're still very relevant today. So the idea is to have a center in town. The States have been extremely cooperative and have given us the tourist office, which is one of the best buildings on the seafront. And we're going to turn that into a Victor Hugo center. There'll be 3 parts. There'll be the center, which will be all about his, obviously telling his story in a very contemporary way with multimedia experiences. There will be a performance space. So it'll be like honoring the past to then promote the future. So giving a platform for local artists, musicians, poets to go and present their work. It'll also be available for corporate events. And there'll be an education center to invite schools from Guernsey, the UK, France to come and on school trips to then learn more about Victor Hugo. And at the same time for the French kid to cover English, history. There's so much the island has to offer.
It's inspiring though, isn't it, as well? Because as you say, him being here made him more creative, and he created more work. And there is a creative side here to the island, isn't it? It's not just all about business. Actually, many people can make what they want.
Well, right now there's a Renoir exhibition. So Renoir came here because Victor Hugo was here. Again, Renoir came at a time where he was in a bit of a in-between stage. He lost a little bit of his momentum. Came to Guernsey because he heard Victor Hugo had been very happy here, and also found inspiration and experienced a Renaissance in Guernsey as well. And the exhibition opens this weekend, and it's a global thing. So I think the Victor Hugo story is also has got legs and should be told.
And it also illustrates there's plenty going on the island, isn't it? Because people who've lived in London or a city, they do think, well, is there going to be the variety of things to do? So, I mean, what kind of things do you look forward to in the year, or what kind of lifestyle do you think people live?
So I'd say you come here thinking, oh my God, it's so small, what am I going to do? And you are going to be swamped by things to do. Literally, we limit ourselves to 3 engagements a week because otherwise it's just too much. And that sounds crazy, but we've had a business life in the UK. We had a very, very busy life. And here, there is just so much to do. So I'm personally engaged with a number of clubs on the island. So I'm on the wood turning club. I'm on a wool spinning club. We're members of the Aero Club, the 2 of the sailing clubs. We're members of a whole variety of things. And it really is as much as you want to get involved. You decide. If you don't want to go, nobody will bother you. But the more you want to engage, the more people will welcome you. And so if you want to be busy every night, you can. If you want to disappear for the winter, you can. But there is so much on Ireland. I mean, it really is incredible. Way more than, with the size of Bog the Regis or Farnham in the UK. And yet there is so much on offer. If you're into drawing, painting, sailing, rowing, whatever you want to do, sports everywhere, music, the music scene is extremely active. There's a very big literary festival on the island. So many communities of interest if you want to get involved.
Great. And do you feel permanently settled? I mean, you haven't only lived here a relatively short time, but what do you think? What do you feel down the line?
Life is in Guernsey. We are going to retire and die in Guernsey. It's we love it. It's absolutely we've got donkeys now and sheep and ducks and chickens, and we live with such a different life from in the UK where we were corporate bodies. Just like I was doing 3 countries a week. I was always like on the plane. And life here is completely different. Literally, and so rewarding and wonderful.
And do you find with the demographics of Relocate, I mean, many people say that there's a younger profile of client coming with families, running businesses and things like that. I mean, anecdotally, what have you seen amongst the profile of people coming here? Yeah,
so I don't, because my kids are grown up now, they're in their 20s and they live in England. So we don't really mix, we don't have school friends.
Yeah, sure.
Like that. But the people that we interact with are mostly people who've sold their business in their early 50s, maybe like late 40s, early 50s. There's a whole cohort of people who've come in the last 2 or 3 years. And they're in all sorts of things. You meet them in the different clubs. There's a lot of events through Relocate Guernsey. The banks also organize a lot of events. So you get so many opportunities to meet people. And again, it's up to you. You take as much as you get what you give. The more you get involved, the more you get back. And there is limitless what you can give if you want to. If you want to get involved in local charities, there's over 350 of them on the island. If you want to get involved in clubs, there's more than I can count. So it literally is up to you.
what's the most sort of satisfying aspect of your life here? Are there moments where you go, oh, I'm just so pleased to be here? It might be that outlook, that moment of peace and quiet. What is it for you that gives you that moment of peace?
I think the island is genuinely beautiful. I mean, that's stunning. It's the world of my grandparents. It's just the whole outside of town. It hasn't changed really. I mean, we were joking the other day that if you went back on the track where Victor Hugo went, you would see exactly what he saw. Because the Gouffre hasn't changed, Moulin White hasn't changed. But for me, there's a couple of things that are really important that you sometimes forget how important they are, like safety. Guernsey is just like, we don't lock our front doors, we don't lock our cars. I've just parked my car, I left the keys in the door. There is no theft here. I've adopted a retired police dog. He's very active, so I walk him a lot and never feel worried for my safety. I might go walking at night in the lanes. Sometimes I forget my phone, I forget my torch. I find myself at 10:30 walking in the dark. In England, I would be terrified.
Yeah.
Here, I don't even think of it. There's a noise, clearly it's a rabbit. Oh, it's a rat, you know.
Yeah.
I've never had at any stage, any feeling of being insecure or threatened in any way. So that's very important. Just the amount of stuff there is to discover here. You know, if you're into sailing, it's the best waters. You know, I mean, it's literally the Caribbean on the back of Herm. You know, sandy bed is beautiful. We see dolphins, we'll see all sorts of wildlife. The coastline, if you enjoy walking, it's absolutely beautiful. So everything is there. And I've got my donkeys. Life is good.
Fabulous. And we're going to see you next week at the Relocate to Guernsey show in London.
Yes.
You're going to be in the Ambassador Lounge, mixing with people wanting to find out more.
Anything you want to know about Victor Hugo, I will tell you.
Wonderful. Well, look, I mean, just to close, is there a top tip for people relocating, perhaps where they're looking at a variety of, they don't have necessarily the close link that you already had with the island, but what do you think, if you're speaking to someone thinking about taking the plunge and relocating, what would you say?
Forget any preconception you may have. You may think it's a small community, am I going somewhere in a black hole? No, you'll find absolutely the opposite. So just embrace it, invest in your relationships, and you will get that back tenfold.
Fabulous. Well, look, lovely to talk to you today, Isabelle, and we look forward to sharing this interview.
Thank you.